nations of the earth. I mean, not
Hey everyone, we'll get started soon.
Wait, Rochelle, I had a question.
Yeah.
So, I saw that you posted the tutorial on the docs, but I couldn't really understand how to do it.
Okay. Which part did you not understand?
So, like, I tried to install, I think it was like Node.js. I didn't know what to do after that.
Yeah. You couldn't figure out how to install it?
Oh, no, I did install Node.js, but then I was basically stuck on the installer page.
Oh, okay. So I wouldn't worry too much about the installation. Just try to figure out the code. But if you're having trouble running the code, then just send me the error that you're getting or whatever problem you're running into in Slack, and I'll respond there.
Got it, thanks.
Cool. So as we saw last class, we were able to create a simple app for Tic-Tac-Toe, or for just a basic React app. This week, we'll actually do Tic-Tac-Toe because people were asking for that. So I'm going to, so we have a question in the chat. So if you want to see a folder on your sidebar for Sublime, all you have to do is actually open up an entire other folder. So for example, if I go to my desktop, I can open up my entire desktop right here. So if I click open on my desktop, now I'll see all the folders on the sidebar. But let's say I only open Tic-Tac-Toe. Let's see, Tic-Tac-Toe. Then I won't really see any folder basically. It's still loading the files, but I'll just only see the Tic-Tac-Toe folder. So yeah, that's basically how that works. We did Tic-Tac-Toe using pure HTML and JavaScript, and the next step will be to do Tic-Tac-Toe using the React framework that we learned last class. React will make it a lot easier for us to learn to really write any JavaScript application, because
Should we make a new folder?
Sorry.
Should we make a new folder?
Yeah. So I'm gonna do that right now. So I have the Tic-Tac-Toe. Sorry, I have the Tic-Tac-Toe folder right here. So I'm gonna rename this to Tic-Tac-Toe old, because that's our old code, and we don't really want that right now. And then I'm gonna make a new Tic-Tac-Toe app using Create React App. This was in the instructions from last class, if you guys haven't done that already, but you can basically install Create React App, and then you can create any app you want. So, or you can call it whatever you want. So in this case, I'm going to call it Tic-Tac-Toe, and it's going to give me a fresh application.
Do we
so
need
that
it for
I can.
today's class?
Sorry.
Do we need it for today's class?
Yeah. So you don't need to actually download it. You can do that for homework, but yeah, basically your homework will be to try to download and run the same code that I'm going to write this class, and see if you can do it yourself.
Wait, so are we using the same code that we did last time?
No, so we're creating a new app here. So what this command does is creates a new folder with whatever name we give it. So I named it Tic-Tac-Toe. So it'll create a new folder, and we can start with some fresh code.
Oh, excuse me, the compilation seems to be taking a while.
Yeah, that's expected. It's installing a bunch of packages. It's installing the React framework. It's doing all this. So no, yeah, so now it's done already. And then it tells us how to actually start our app just by this. Yeah, sorry, let me make my screen bigger. So we can start our application using this. So I do cd tic-tac-toe, just copying this command. And then we're now in the tic-tac-toe directory. So if we go back to our desktop, we can see that, oh, I created this in the wrong folder. Let me go back. So I created it in my apps folder instead, but we can see that the Tic-Tac-Toe app got created here, and I'll just, or I'll just keep it in there for now because it'll take some time to copy, I think. So now we can go cd tic-tac-toe. It says happy hacking just because it's saying like good luck coding. Basically, it's just like a nice phrase. But these are the two commands you need to actually start your application. So I did cd tic-tac-toe, and then you're in the tic-tac-toe directory, and then you can run npm start, which will, sorry, let me actually open up a browser so you guys can see it. So if I have a new window right here, it's just any page you want, and then I run npm start, it will open it up on my window. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you do anything different if you are doing the code on REPL?
You shouldn't do it on REPL because you won't be able to actually install an app using React. So the instructions were posted in the tiny URL, but basically all you have to do is run create React app, and that will allow you to run the code locally on your computer instead of using REPL.
Oh,
And
excuse me.
is it okay if we didn't save the files like this before inside a folder for tic-tac-toe?
Yeah, this is going to be a new application, so you don't have to worry about the
So
old
we don't
Tic-Tac-Toe.
really need the old one anymore.
Yeah, you don't need that one.
Okay.
Excuse me, I have two questions
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
So the first one is when it finishes compiling, it already says cd my app and npm start. Is that natural?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So it should always say that when you do create React app, and then you should be able to start your app just by running those two commands.
Oh, and we also have to cd it to the tic-tac-toe file that we did, correct?
So actually, don't worry about the files that we created last class, or whenever we made the Tic-Tac-Toe app. We're going to create a brand new app this class.
Oh, okay, so what do we have to type after it says npm start? Do we just have to leave it there?
Yeah, so you just
Okay.
leave it there. So as you can see, it compiled successfully. It says you can view Tic-Tac-Toe in the browser. So like I said, I just created a new app, so it doesn't have anything. This is just the default React page. And now I can actually minimize this. So I'll just close this down, and we can start coding. So let's see, we have a few questions. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah. I came a little late. What did you just do right now?
Okay, so let me actually just restart it. So let me exit out, and so now I'm on my desktop. So if you open a brand new terminal, you'll probably start out with this. So you'll just want to do cd desktop, and then now you'll be on desktop. Let's see. I can't do Sublime because I don't know how to connect it to the code. So I'll show you how to open it in Sublime Text right now, and then a tutorial is going to be posted after.
Will you do coding in Sublime though?
What was that?
Will you be coding in Sublime though for this class?
Yeah, I will. So you guys should look at my screen right now and follow along. Don't do anything on your screen. Follow along and see how I actually open it up in Sublime Text, and then hopefully that'll answer a lot of the questions. So I'm gonna do cd desktop, so this will go to my desktop. So now I'm in the folder of my desktop, and I can do whatever I want. So I'm gonna create React app, Tic-Tac-Toe. So what this will do is this will create a React app, a brand new React app, fresh, like with just the default code on my desktop. And so I can run that command, and it'll take some time, but what it does is it creates a new app and installs React. It installs a bunch of packages that you'll need, and then we'll be able to run our app right after that. So I'm not doing anything here. This is just all being done in the terminal automatically, as long as you have followed the steps from last class, and then you'll be able to do this. And I'll show you how to open the code as soon as this is done. So it's only a few steps. It's really easy. So just follow along, and you'll know how to do it. Cool. So this is almost done. And it's just automatically doing this. I'm not doing anything right now. Just installing the packages. And now it's done. So it'll give me these commands so you can begin by typing these. So I'll do cd tic-tac-toe. So now we see the tic-tac-toe was created on my desktop. So that's where the folder lives. And then we can do npm start. So npm start. So that now it'll open up the code on my browser.
So the create React app is a bunch of code, or is it actually
Yeah.
down?
So create React app will by default will give you a bunch of code that allows you to run it in your browser automatically.
And Node.js is the one that you Node.js is the compiler that you download.
Yeah, you have to download Node.js, otherwise you won't be able to compile the code. Yeah, that's right. So now I'm going to open up Sublime Text, and this is how you open the code. So watch this very carefully. So we are in Sublime Text, and we've already done create React app with Tic-Tac-Toe in our desktop, right? So if I go to my desktop, there's a Tic-Tac-Toe folder right here. And now I open up Sublime Text, and I want to open up that code. So I'm going to do open with the 3 dots. You have to make sure you do that one and nothing else. So do open 3 dots. Now it'll open up my Finder with all of my folders. So I can go to desktop, and that is where I downloaded the code. And then I'll click Tic-Tac-Toe here, and then I'll click open. So now it's just going to open up all the Tic-Tac-Toe code that we just downloaded. And it's just a blank React app that create React app gives us.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
It doesn't say open when we do the file though. It says open file, open folder, open recent.
Yeah, open folder then, sorry. So it'll be
Okay.
either open with 3 dots or open folder, and you want to open the Tic-Tac-Toe folder.
And we open it in Sublime, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
So now we've opened it up in Sublime right here.
How come there's so many folders?
How come what?
How come there's like so many folders?
Yeah, so React has a lot of default code that they give us, and that's nice. That helps us like run the code very easily. You don't have to worry about. Sorry.
You don't need all those folders for today, right?
Yeah. So like I said last class, we only need to worry about 2 files. That's the app.js and app.css. They're in the source folder, and these are just the only 2 files that you have to worry about. You don't need to touch anything else. So let me give a little overview of React first. So that will help, I think. So you guys don't need to worry too much about all these words, but what basically like React does is it's a library in JavaScript. So it's built on top of JavaScript, and it allows you to build websites a lot more easier. So basically, like when you create an app using JavaScript, like we did, just pure JavaScript, like we did with Tic-Tac-Toe, it was obviously a lot of work, and it wasn't super easy to read the code, and it took some time, and it was hard to understand. I remember you guys were asking a lot of questions when we were doing that, and it wasn't like super straightforward. But React it'll really allow us to write the code in a cleaner way, and it also comes with a lot of nice developer tools that will help with coding and make it easier. So for example, there's this thing called hot reloading. So I can teach that right now. So we can see edit the code and save to reload, right? So normally for HTML, we would have to refresh the page to see the code change. But here we can actually see that it'll refresh automatically without me doing anything as soon as I save my file. So if let's say I want to delete this edit the source, right? So I'm going to delete that entire p tag right here. And then all I'm going to do is do file, save, right? And then now the page automatically refreshed and remove that code. So similarly, I can remove all of this and say hello world, and I'm going to save it. And then it says hello world. So now we don't have to ever refresh the page because it'll automatically reload for us. So that's one of the great things of React, and there's a lot of nice developer tools that it brings too, but we won't get into too many of those because of the time frame of this class.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
It seems to have already coded for every single file.
Yeah, so it gives you a lot of default files, like I said, and that's what allows you to run your app right away. So that's what makes React great, is there's a lot of like developer tools, like I said, and boilerplate code that you can download from the internet that will help you get started right away. So
it's basically just like a library automatically.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a library, and it comes with a lot of default code, and this allows you to run the app like you just saw right away, shows up in your browser, and you can start developing without having to set anything up. So as you saw, like I was able to do hello world in about like 5 seconds just by deleting that code and writing it.
I see.
Yeah, this does work in Linux. You can do this in Linux with the same steps as Mac. You just have to download Node, run create React app, and then it should open up in your browser. Cool. So we have this hello world. So now what we're going to want to do actually is start creating our React app. So or start creating our Tic-Tac-Toe game. So what we're going to want to have first is a class. The reason you want a class here is because we're going to have to keep track of state, and we want it to be a component, a React component. So we're going to just do react.component. Actually, sorry. Let me just keep it as a function. That'll make it a little easier. And we can have our state sit in this area too. So we're going to use a React function called useState. So what useState will do is it'll allow you to keep track of anything you want. So can someone answer what are the things that we want to keep track of in a Tic-Tac-Toe game?
The X's, the O's, and which squares are first.
The configuration.
Yeah. So that, yeah, X's and O's, and what else?
The configuration of them.
Yeah, the press squares.
Yeah, and then so we'll need a board. So that's good. So we'll have so to use the React use state, we'll want to do this, and then we'll say use state, and then so what this gives us is a board. So it gives you a variable, and then it allows you to set that variable. So it gives you two things, and then you give it a default state. So here the default state will be a board with empty squares, right? So as you saw in the previous time we created a tic-tac-toe game, we needed to initialize our board with empty squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we have our board, and it's empty. So that's that. What else do we need to keep track of?
The combinations for the win.
Yeah, that's good. So we can actually keep track of that right here. So I have that from the last time we did it. So right here, we can have a winning combos, and we can tell the indexes in the array that we want for it to win, for a single player to win. Can you guys think of anything else that we'd want to keep track of? What was that? Okay, well, the last thing we want to keep track of is whose turn it is. So we'll call it turn and set turn, and then it starts with X. So that's how you use state. Use state will give you the default, the initial value for this variable, and that'll be X. So now let's print out whose turn it is, right? So remember in React to actually edit or to actually write JavaScript in your HTML, you just use the braces, and you can basically write whatever you want. So we'll write whose turn it is and go back to the browser, and we can see it printed out X. And so if I change the initial state to O, then it'll print out O. So this is great because we can see our variables at any time we want, and we can clearly see that it's working. Cool. So now we have that. Now let's create our board. We've already written the CSS for this, so I'm going to copy it over from the previous time we worked on tic-tac-toe. So let me get that code really quick. So we can just replace our CSS file with the code that we have from our previous tic-tac-toe board. So React doesn't really change anything in terms of CSS. CSS is really its own thing. It's for design. React will really help us with writing our JavaScript and making that easier.
Oh, excuse me, can you show the turn, set turn just one more time?
Yeah. So this
okay.
is use state. So use state allows you to set a variable and give it an initial value, and then gives you a option to set the variable at any time. So the great part of this is it'll work under React, and it'll automatically reload anytime someone changes it. So if we define the first, so I'll do a little comment to explain this. So variable set variable, which is a function to set the variable, and then you can use state, and then default value. So that's how you would want to use state. You give it a default value here in the argument, and then you can have the variable that you want to use, and then you have the option to set the variable to whatever you want also. So that's how we use turn, and then since we define the variable to be turn here, then we can use it in our JavaScript also. And the CSS. Sorry. Oh yeah, the winning. Yeah. So okay, yeah. The winning combos are all they're all the same as last time we did the tic-tac-toe game. So you don't have to worry about it too much, but it should be in the code that's on the tiny URL.
Do we not need to actually, because it's saying that hello world X, but do we not have to also put the board? under hello world so that we can also show all of the other use state commas there?
You're saying to show the board? Yeah. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
do that right now. I'm gonna do that right now where I'll actually print the board out nicely like we did for the previous Tic-Tac-Toe game.
And where's the code for that board that we did previously? Is that also on the tiny URL?
Yeah. All the code is on the tiny URL. I'll post it. I'll post all the code and the video online, so you guys will be able to follow along again if you want to go through this. Yeah, basically what you'll need to do for homework is just go through this code and understand it and try it yourself.
Why do you change app or class to function?
It was always function. I messed up and I was changing it to class for no reason. So yeah, we can just leave it as function, which is the default create React app code.
So what do we need to copy now though? Do we have to copy like the board itself, the code for the board?
Yeah. So I'm gonna go back to our code for the board, and so here's what we had previously, right? This code looks very dirty, obviously. So like we're setting the inner HTML on element and doing all this stuff, and it's not the greatest code. So like really what we need to do here is use just the HTML because that's what matters. So the great part about React is it allows us to enter JavaScript directly into the HTML without having to do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first copy this board. And then remember that in React, the only difference is that you have to use class name instead of class. So then we can have class name equals board. And then we'll have these squares. And we don't need the square ID anymore because that'll be handled for us. And then now we have the board variable, so we can say board of 0. And then just copy this a bunch of times. Just 8 because we start at 0, so we need 9 squares. So you don't have to worry about the difference between function and class, but we can just see this really quick. I'll post this in the tiny URL if you're curious, but this actually is not important for this class. Cool. So I'm gonna
is it possible if you could debrief that query selector document dot target code over there, the very first sentence?
Yeah, so this was explained in the last time that we created the React app, but we actually don't need this. So I just deleted it. We don't need that code because that's what makes React so nice, is that you don't actually have to write any of that code to inject your HTML into the document. You can just directly write it here, and then I forgot to do one thing, which is that we want to put braces around any of our JavaScript. So let's actually look at what happened. So if we look at this, it tried to write board of 0, board of 1, board of 2, and all of the squares, and that really, so let me say current turn, and then that doesn't do what we wanted to do, right? We want to reference this variable, so we have to use braces in our JavaScript, in our HTML, for it to read JavaScript. So I'm gonna you can hold down command and then click anywhere you want, and it'll add the cursor multiple places, and then we put braces around our code. So now we go back and it's empty because that's what the default state is. But for example, if I did X and O and stuff like that, then we'd start seeing it on the board. And then we also will print out our current turn so we can see whose turn it is. Cool, so let me stop for questions here.
Yeah, I have one question.
Yeah.
So the app.css is the same as the last class?
App.css is the same as when we created our Tic-Tac-Toe app.
And that's in the
So,
GitHub link.
sorry?
That's in the GitHub link, right?
Yeah, exactly. That code is posted on GitHub and you can find it on the tiny URL. So, I mean, yeah, it's right here, but you should be able to copy it from the code online. Yeah, this basically styles our board, and I explained this in the Tic-Tac-Toe. When we created the Tic-Tac-Toe app, I explained what all this means.
It'll be in a file in the GitHub called styles.css.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so React right now, React thinks it's X's turn all the time, right? It doesn't ever change. If I click around, it does nothing. So we need to fix this problem. And we haven't told React whose turn it is yet. Or we haven't told React to switch turns yet. There's obviously no code that says set the turn to O, which we obviously want to do sometimes. So we're going to do that soon. Yeah, so the color coding is off. I'm not too familiar with Sublime, so I'm not sure exactly how to do it. Let's see.
You should just ignore it. It doesn't really matter because the code, it just reads it all the same.
Yeah,
It's
yes.
off color.
If you like go to the bold sublime text like at the top, like next to the Apple sign,
Yeah.
you just click that and then you go to preferences and color scheme. You can like change it like that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
But yeah.
It seems that React itself is actually pointing out the syntax errors in the code.
Yeah, React or it's basically JavaScript pointing out the syntax errors.
I see. But they're
I'm
appearing
trying to-
on the React. It's basically saying failed to compile, and then it's giving us the error.
Oh, that would mean probably that there's some syntax error in your code. React will tell you what the syntax errors are. So if you are seeing like a red error on your screen, so for example, if I do this wrong, it'll say some parsing error, right? So if you see an error like that and you can't figure it out, just post it in the Slack and I'll tell you what it is. But if you copy the code down correctly, you won't see any errors.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Let me look this up really quick.
Oh, is it? Could you just go over that? How to get rid of all of the text, because all of the text is appearing in the boxes.
Oh yeah. So
Sorry,
you want to make sure
mentioned
you
it
have.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to make sure you have braces here. So
Oh,
if
brace. Oh, okay.
yeah, that will tell the HTML that this is JavaScript and that we want to read it as JavaScript. Otherwise, it'll just read it as plain text.
I see.
I'm trying to figure out code React. Yeah, so it looks like they're having the same problem. So we'll want to do oops. Yeah, I want to install Babel. There we go. So here's how you would fix your code colors.
Shut up. I want to see the code. You're literally not letting.
So if you download the package Babel, then you'll actually be able to see it right here, and then you can choose JavaScript Babel on the bottom right instead of JavaScript, and that'll give you nice color coding for your code. I posted the link in the tiny URL how to do that, but don't worry about it because, like they said, the color of the code does not matter. It'll be read the same by your browser. So in line 1, why do we need line 1? Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is just how you import things in JavaScript. So basically, React is the default import from this package React, and useState is not the default. It's just another part of the package. So we need to use braces for anything that's not the default. Don't worry about it too much. Just make sure you have useState written like this at the top, and then you'll be able to use it.
So essentially, the code that is not useState is already default code from the library, and that is why we don't have to put that in brackets.
Yeah, exactly. So React, by importing React, this gives us all the default React functionality, but useState is not default. It's actually like a separate optional functionality that you can add. So if you want to use it, you have to import it like this.
So do you have to do like this for any like new import?
Yeah. So if we import anything else, you'll see that we'll have to add something here, but we might not need anything, but we'll see.
But then that import is only if we're defining a function or a const value, basically, right?
Yeah, the import is only if you're going to need to use the function for whatever reason. So in this case, we're using useState. I don't think we'll need to use anything else, so you won't need to import anything else.
Okay. And useState is basically saying that we're going to use whatever is in those brackets as part of the like final application.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So cool. So we have our board. Hopefully everyone understands that. We can see whose turn it is using the turn variable. We have our board. We wrote the CSS that is from last class, so or from the last time we created the Tic-Tac-Toe app, so don't worry about that. And then we have our brackets here, which allow us to say what is at each spot on the board. So the next thing we'll want to do is actually write this in a better way, because right now we have to copy this code 9 times, right? And that's kind of annoying. So what I'm going to do is delete this, and I'll just put it at the bottom here and comment it out. It's not letting me comment it though. Okay, there we go. So we want to write this code in a better way. So this is how you write it in HTML, but with the power of React, we can actually write this in a lot fewer lines, and we'll see that right now. So we can use JavaScript, and we can say board.map. So as we learned in last class, I think we mapped over a list of images. So it's the same idea, and then we'll have a function. For example, it'll take in cell, right? So this function will take in a cell, or let's call it square, and it'll take in the index of the square. So
excuse me, were we supposed to move all of that code out of the return statement?
Yeah. So I removed all this because we don't need it. This is just an example of showing you how you could do it in React, but there's better ways to do it. So I'm going to show that right now, how to do it in a better way.
Oh, okay.
So let me actually just delete this because we don't need it anymore. But we saw that was 8 lines. Now we're going to do it in actually basically 1 line in 2 lines. So now what we want to do is we want to return the square. So similarly, we'll have class name equals square, and then so we have our index, and the index and the square, right? So the square will be whatever is in this value, and then the index will be the number of the square. So we're gonna, so now we can put the value of the square here using brackets similar to before. And then the last thing we'll want to do is, so let's actually just see if this works first. So okay, we have a parsing error.
Excuse me?
I just forgot to put a parentheses. Yeah.
Will you post all this code after class?
Yeah, I will. And you'll need the key, I think. I might have put too many. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I put too many squares in my array. So now we have 9 squares, and we did that in literally 3 lines. So this is really nice because using the map function, we can map over all of the elements in our array. And now it'll still change dynamically. If I put these values in the array, it'll change. So the next thing we want to do is make something happen when we click a square. So when I click a square right now, nothing happens because we haven't wrote any code for that. So if you're seeing that you can't create a React app because it says your computer you can only have one, make sure you're naming it the right thing. So if you already have a folder with that name, then it won't work. So if you have a folder called Tic-Tac-Toe and you try to create React app Tic-Tac-Toe, it won't work. You'll have to make a new name for the folder. So what we want to do is have a function for what happens when you click the board. So this will be on click, and we'll say this will be a function that will do a handle click, and it'll take in the index from above. And then, yeah.
For some reason, all my end quote, like the bracket, parenthesis, bracket, it's all showing up in quotes.
Bracket, parentheses, bracket. Where exactly is that? Are you talking about this?
No, the 3 brackets. So the curly braces, parenthesis, curly braces. Yeah, it's all showing up in quotes.
Just make sure you're copying this down correctly. You might have like an extra bracket or extra quote somewhere.
Got it.
So yeah, so what we'll want to do now is handle what happens when we click on a square. So here we'll do handle click, and this is a function that takes in index. So this is how you write a function in JavaScript. And let's see what happens if we console log it. So if anyone remembers console log, you can print out anything and it'll show up in the JavaScript console if you click inspect and then click console. So now we can see what happens if I click this. So let me get this bigger. So I click the last square, it's an 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So wherever you click on the board, it console logs the index, which means our handle click function is working correctly, like how we want it to. It tells us what index was clicked in the array. So yeah, so now we have that, and now we need to do something with that. So instead of
excuse me, could you just go over this one more time, just like a quick brief over it?
Yeah. So we map over our board. Board is an array, and it's an array with all the values of that we want in our game, right? So we have nine spots right here. And when you map over an array, you'll get two things. That's the value and the index. So this is the value of that item in the array, and then you'll have the index, which is the 0, 1, 2, the index in that array of that value. So we can easily use the same HTML code we used from before. Div class equals square, and then end the div, and then we put in the square value using the brackets, because to write JavaScript, we have to use brackets here. Then the last thing we'll want to do is do something when the item is clicked. So that's another thing that React allows us to do, actually. And React allows us to add an on-click handler easily to any of our elements. So now whenever the square is clicked, it'll call the handle click function. So we can define a function up here that's the handle click, and whenever it gets clicked, it'll go up here and do whatever is in this function. And since we're passing in the index.
And
Sorry?
what is it that it's doing in that function, console.log index? Is it basically taking the index of each square?
Yeah. So what happens so here in the on click, we're passing in the index of that square, right? So it could be whatever it is. It could be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you'll need to handle click will take that index as an argument, because we're passing it as an argument right here, and then you can do whatever you want with it, right? So console.log, if you don't remember from last class, console.log, what it does is it prints out. It's basically the JavaScript equivalent of print, but on a web browser, you don't want to just print things on the page and see a bunch of text show up on the page, because that would look really bad. It actually print out to the console right here. So if we print out to the console, we can see that. So to open up the console, remember you can do right click, inspect, and then click console, and then you can see anything that is printed in the console. So you can just click one of these squares and it'll show up, and whatever number you click, it'll show up here, because it passes in the index over here.
Oh, so on click, it'll basically give you the indexes, what the essential meaning of it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Cool. So the next thing we'll want to do is actually set our board. So the best thing to do here is actually set the board, and then we'll set it to basically whatever we want the new board to be. So if I say set board here, then this is not going to really do anything. This will just set the board to the same board every time. As you can see, this doesn't do anything. It doesn't change the board. But if we do board of index and actually change it, then we'll be able to see the new board. So say board of index equals turn. So now we can say whatever is in the board, change that the index that was clicked, and give it the item or set the value of that item to the current turn. So and then obviously set the board to that current board, so that the state is refreshed. So yeah, that's not going to work. Let me just
is there a way to create an HTML file to run these two programs?
HTML file, like,
yeah.
So to use React, you actually want to actually like use a JavaScript file because React it doesn't it doesn't work with pure HTML.
I mean, like, can you do it without React?
Oh no. So this is using the React framework. If you want to do it without React, then we taught that in week I think week 3 when we created a Tic-Tac-Toe app without React. But yeah, basically React allows us to write this code a lot easier. So the I think the easiest thing we'll have to do is we'll have to say we'll have to have a clone board, because we can't just directly edit the board here because it's part of the React state, and we'll have to see if we can figure out a way to clone the board. So and then we can do that here. So what we'll want to do is actually just have this code that will clone the board. This is just the easiest way to do it for now. And then let's console log the clone board to make sure this is working correctly after the index is set. So cool. So now I clicked in the middle and the index got set to X. And you can see that it keeps getting set, right? But the board is not changing because we're setting it to the old board. So if I change this to the clone board now, then we can see that it's working. So yeah, let me pause for questions there. Okay, so we can see that it's setting it to X every time. So does anyone know what we should maybe do here to solve that problem? Anyone have an idea? Okay, I see they said change the turn, change X to O somehow. So that's right. How do you guys think you can change the turn? So if you guys remember, we have a variable, then we have a set variable, and that's what useState gives us. So does anyone know how we would want to change the turn? Yeah, so it looks like a few people got it. So you want to use the set turn because that's what allows us to set the variable to whatever we want. So the last thing we'll want to do is set turn to whatever the turn is not. So we'll just say if turn is X, then set turn to O, else set turn to X. So this is a if statement, and we use the triple equal sign as we learned last class. That's how you compare variables in JavaScript. And then we basically just set the turn to the opposite turn that it is currently. So now if we go back, we can see that it's all working. I'm going to stop there for this class, and then next class we can handle actually setting the turn, or sorry, handling getting the winner. But let's do Q&A now for anyone who has any questions.
Can you repeat what the JSON parse stuff does?
Yeah, so this is like kind of a complicated way of doing it. The other way would be to install a library, I think, or use some other JavaScript methods, but this is just a very simple one-liner way to do it. But basically what this does is it gets this board object and actually creates a new object, a new array for it. So it creates a separate array that's the same as the current board. we can't actually set the board directly because we can't just say board of index equals turn. We can't just do that by itself. So instead of this, we can't do this because you can't change something in the state directly in React because it won't actually update it properly. So what we have to do is actually create a new object for it to update, and then it'll know that the object changed, the array changed to something else, and then it'll update it automatically.
Also, why is the constant of winning combos not underneath the app function?
So you really only need anything in your app that will be used, that will use variables within your app, right? So here in this handle click function, for example, we're using turn, board is being used here. So to use state, to use state, you actually have to have it under your app. So that's just a rule of use state. But for other things like this, you need to use these other variables around here. So that's why you need it. Winning combos will never have to use anything else. It'll only be used by other things. So now we can, in here, we can say like, we can do our winning logic, right? So like if winning combos, so I'll just do a to do here, say add winning logic using winning combos, right? So we'll only need to read from winning combos. We won't ever have to do anything with it. So we don't actually need it to be declared within our app. We don't actually have to change it either. Clone board has to be a constant because it doesn't have to be a constant actually. I mean, we can make it a like a variable too that allows you to change it, which is let, but it actually doesn't matter because we're not actually changing the entire variable. So we're not actually doing clone board equals something. We're only changing an index, which is fine. So you don't need to make it a let.
Excuse me, it's saying that JSOW is not a defined, like, is not defined basically.
Yeah, you might be using W instead of N right here.
Oh, sorry, I used W by accident, my bad.
Yeah, no worries.
So what is it supposed to do when we're saying JSON.parse?
Yeah, so JSON, so this is a JSON, so it'll basically so let's test it out. So what you can do is you can do JSON.stringify of board, right? And let's see what that prints out. So or let's do it's hard to see that this is actually or here, let's do it here. Let's do it in the console. So in this JavaScript console, you can write anything you want. So say const board equals this. So board we can see is like an array of 9 items, right? But now if I do this on stringify a board, we can see that it becomes a string because you can see the quotes around it. And we want to do that because we basically want to create a clone of this object, of this array. And to create a clone of the array, we just convert it to a string and then convert it back so that JavaScript thinks it's a different thing. So JSON.parse, and then I'll pass in this entire string, will now give us, I'll need to use right quotes. So now it gives me back an array. So JSON.stringify converts it to a string. So let me just comment that here. JSON.stringify converts to a string, converts the array to a string, and JSON.parse converts the string to an array. together they create a clone of the array. So that way we can create a clone of the array and we can tell React that we have a new board for it to show on the page.
And thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Yep, thank you.
I know this is something that's like been in our code for the previous weeks, but can you explain like exactly what return does? Because I think I forgot.
Yeah, so return tells React what or tells the browser what React is trying to show on the page. So here, whatever we return in this method will be what is displayed on the page. So if I remove all this and just say hello, then it'll only show hello on the page and that's it. So that's why it's important to make sure that you have everything that you want on the page within this return statement.
I see. Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That'll be the end of class then. Feel free to answer any other questions or ask any other questions in Slack and I'll answer them.